if you have like a viral success and you localized it, you're going to get more money. So you're hardcore incentivized to make sure that everything's properly like localized. Hey everyone, and welcome to Slater Pod. Hi there, Esther.
Hi, Florian.
We are back after, I don't know, must have been 2 to 3 weeks, three
It's
to
been a
four
while.
weeks.
Yeah,
It's
with
been a
Easter and
while.
everything.
At Easter, we did take a couple of days off, went to the south, and now we're back. You didn't go south, you went
No, I
west.
went to New York for a few days, which was lovely.
Nice. That's farther than I got. I got to Como, Italy, which is about, 2 steps across the border from Switzerland. All right, here we are, and we're all heading to London in exactly 3 weeks, where we will be at SlaterCon London. Very, very exciting. Agenda's been finished for a week or so now. We're on track for a full house, so do make sure to register now. It's a big space. It's a big space, so we can accommodate quite a lot of people. But who knows? At some point, we may run into like logistical problems to keep adding more participants. So go and register now. Since we were last on, we published also a new piece of research on legal and language AI. Anybody who's even remotely involved in the legal sector, do make sure to go get that report. Fantastic piece of research by Alex Edwards, our research analyst, Alex Edwards, and it's about 90 pages or so. Fantastic piece of research. All right. Now, hey, how do you become the default translation app on the iPhone?
It's a good question. I'd have to start by building a translation app, I would imagine.
You would have to build a translation app. Now the question is that super hard? Probably it is. But so we came across a post by DeepL that they're proudly announcing that they're now that you can make DeepL the default translation app. So we dug it a little deeper, and here's what we found: that as part of our rollout, and I'm hoping I get this right. If we don't, I don't know, add some comments on the YouTube or something. That iOS, the iOS 18.2, one of the versions that was released, like an iPhone operating system, of course, that was released back in December. It introduced the option to set default apps for a number of functions. Let me just pull this up. So you can now basically go to settings. If you're on an iPhone, scroll all the way down. There's a thing that's called apps. You open this, and then it's at the very top. It's called default apps, and then you click on that. And then you can set default apps for things like email, messaging, calling, call filtering, browser app, and translation. And then passwords, contactless app, and keyboard. So actually, it's only like 9 or 10 things you can set the default app for. And among them is translation, right? Incredible. And so if you don't have any translation apps downloaded on your iPhone, it's basically the default app would be the Apple Translate app, which comes pre-installed with every iPhone. But if you download DeepL, or you have it downloaded, you have the option of choosing DeepL as your default translation app. Now the question would be, well, what if you have Google Translate or Microsoft Translator or iTranslate or any other translation app on your phone? Right now, you can't choose it. It's not selectable. It's not. You can't tick it because apparently these other apps haven't gone through the hoops that Apple put online to become the default translation app. The only company so far that's done this is DeepL. So it looks like they're pretty switched on. And but there is a very clear set of steps that Apple posted on some like developer forum or developer page that you have to do to jump through to become the default translation app. And I'm sure that Google Translate, MS Translator, iTranslate, what have you, are gonna follow soon. So we're gonna be checking how fast other apps are gonna be added to that default app. So well, congrats to DeepL to being first. And now let's see who's second and third. It seems like a big deal if you can become the default translation app on the iPhone.
It makes sense, doesn't it? Because one thing that I think is already on that list, like not translation, would be things like a map, because you click on a link and you want it to open up the location or directions within a map. I think it's a similar thing with translation, isn't it? Like maybe you would be selecting a word or like a sentence within one app and then want to go and translate it in the translation app. So I suppose there's a lot of kind of linking or calling on from other pages into that app. So it makes sense that they would add translation as a, like, people might have a preference for opening this up in their preferred app. Because it really annoys me. I remember on my iPhone, it used to open up Apple Maps, and I don't like Apple Maps. So then, you have to switch it to Google Maps or whatever is your preferred one.
But you can't. For the maps, for example.
Oh, you can't?
No, it's not part of this list. So right now we have,
Ah.
let me go through that list again. Right now, if I'm getting this correct,
Yeah.
it's email. So, Gmail or what have you, like Apple Mail or something. Messaging, calling, call filtering, not sure what that is. Browser, obviously, it comes pre-installed with Safari, and then you can go to, Brave or Chrome or what have you. Translation,
Oh, right.
passwords and codes, contactless app. So, wallet comes pre-installed, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
keyboards.
Ah,
That's it.
I thought there was something for maps already, but maybe I just got used to it.
Just not in this thing. So
Yeah.
it's quite remarkable that translation will
narrow
be part of
list.
the part of that 9 lists, right? So, well, if any developer over at Microsoft, Google, iTranslate, and all the other apps are listening, you do want to go and jump through those hoops. I don't think it's super difficult.
Didn't sound like it, but then
No.
I'm not the one implementing it. So
All right.
Let's see.
So our friends at RWS issued a half-year trading update for the first 6 months of the financial years. And that led to a little bit of a panic at the stock market. Wouldn't call it panic, but basically the share price was cut nearly in half after this update. And so we looked into it, and we didn't really see a reason why this like 40% sell-off happened. Really, I don't understand. Like 3 out of 4 divisions are growing. The language AI and AI data business, Train AI, right? I think it's
Yeah.
called, are performing quite strongly. They did mention some challenges on the client front. They're needing to onboard client onto some new automated delivery models. I think life sciences is not doing too well. But revenue's fairly stable. I think they generated about 460 million US dollar in the 6 months. And then if you strip out a bunch of like one-off financial items and currency fluctuations and things like that, I think that the bottom line is also fairly solid in terms of profits. For the full year, they're expecting to generate about $85 million in profit, $85 million in actual profit, right? And the CEO's outlook is quite okay too. So I don't know. So then we were like, well, is there something going on the balance sheet level maybe? But no, I mean, they have manageable debt levels. So they're not like, over their years in debt. They have a solid cash position. I can't really make heads or tails of this. Don't really understand, because now the RWS shares are trading at like a 5 point something price to earnings ratio,
Okay.
which is
Yeah.
super low, like super low. Like the average for UK listed companies that we found somewhere is like 20.
Yeah.
And, your typical tech stock would be trading at like, I don't know, 30, 40, 50. And then like all these crazy kind of science fiction future companies would be, in the triple
Hundreds.
digits.
Yeah.
So it is super, the shares are really super cheap by any measure. So I don't understand. Maybe there's like a big block of like shares that got sold in one go because some like long-term investor got frustrated or something. I don't know. As I said, shares are incredibly cheap by any measure. And if you think about all of these high-flying, startups that are raising money for AI. I mean, most of them are obviously completely unprofitable, as startups, tend to be, and they're getting tons of funding. So I'm not really sure what this is about. In terms of, we also looked at language chat partnerships. So there's been like a ton of announcements of collaborations, as kind of
Yeah.
companies are looking to strengthen without having to build, finding kind of win-win kind of partnerships. So the first one would be Aclaro. I think you looked into this very briefly. I think that did 2 announcements recently.
Yeah, exactly. So we had one that came out in late March, which was where Aclaro and Phrase, so the language technology platform. They are co-funding a new solutions architect role. So that's sort of a creation of a joint role. And I think they plan to share more about that in StateCon London in a few weeks. So that'll be interesting. Yeah.
I think Phrase is another one. I don't recall like a similar kind of solutions architect role, maybe with Argos or something. Might be wrong, but it seems something they're doing, kind of co-funding these types of solution architect roles, complex onboarding of big enterprise accounts, and you kind of have this joint role that would help with the onboarding.
Yeah, I suppose maybe they find that they're being used together, for want of a better word, by clients so often that it would actually make sense to have one person dedicated to a joint solution or implementing that in a client-facing way.
Makes sense. Yeah. And then also Aclara did something with Unbabel.
Unbabel as well, yeah. So another strategic partnership announced with Unbabel. So that one is more for sort of the linguist community. So Unbabel there for having access to Aclara's translators, linguists, and then Aclara would then be able also to utilize Unbabel's AI translation.
All right. And then Phrase traveled to beautiful Shanghai.
Lovely.
To announce a partnership with a company called Clearly Local.
Phrase again,
Phrase again, Phrase again. So Phrase with Aclara, Phrase with a company called Clearly Local. Got a little nostalgic there thinking about Shanghai. I haven't been back for like 6 years. Got to go there now. I think Swiss don't need a visa anymore if you stay for less than a week or maybe for like a month or something. So yeah, I should totally go back there. I think last time, again, 6-7 years. And Kudo grew their network. So Kudo added simultaneous on-air and Argo translation to their partner and reseller network. And then our friends at DeepDub, they got a case study on the AWS blog, so the Amazon Web Services blog, showcasing their collaboration with Paramount. That's quite nice. So you get featured on a blog like AWS with a collaboration on Paramount, so we can assume that DeepDub runs on AWS and builds on AWS if they get that shout out. And then continuing on partnership, Vistia partnered with HeyGen to launch translation and AI dubbing features. So Vistia, kind of to me, it's like you got YouTube, you got Vimeo, and then like Vistia is kind of the more corporate. I mean, YouTube, like you can anybody can put up a YouTube, right? And then you host it there, but it's more towards kind of views and likes, and you can monetize it. And then you have Vimeo, which is kind of this kind of a slightly more B2B, right? Yeah. And then Vistia to me is kind of only B2B. I haven't seen any kind of creators be on B2B. Sure. So, that's my input there. So they said that during Q1 they're launching a beta, and Vistia offered 60 minutes of free AI dubbing per customer, and that was in Q1. So the feedback was positive, and now they're rolling out the full, doing the full rollout. So
HeyGen is providing the translation or providing the dubbing for Vistia users. Is that
correct? Okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. So such a competitive environment. We just talked about DeepDub, and now you have HeyGen doing, offering that and partnering. So they're getting obviously a big channel with Vistia, and kudos to them. I think the Lilt's new podcast, if you go to their website, is hosted on Vistia. They also put it up on YouTube, but I think on their website they host it on Vistia, which I don't know why. Why not just link the YouTube one? By the way, major shout out, go and listen to that new and subscribe to that new Lil podcast, where Spence is hosting really interesting people, I think once a week now. So great selection of guests. I'll listen. I kind of realized it after they already published 4 episodes. I caught up on all the previous ones. Seriously great stuff. So shout out to Lilt. And a similar one, and I will stop with that kind of partnership thing, is Synthesia and DeepL. So now, first, Synthesia is backed by Adobe. They got some funding by Adobe. Okay. And now they're teaming up with DeepL. So DeepL is obviously providing the translation for Synthesia videos. This whole avatar thing is becoming very ubiquitous. We when I opened the the Script app, it's that app called the Script that we're using to do podcasts and kind of small videos. Like I got a notification that a new feature is now AI avatars. Right.
Yep.
So
there we go. Another.
there we go. I tested it. It's pretty good.
You like it?
It's an actual AR avatar though. It's not like it's an AI generated person. Like it's like a cartoon type of thing. It's not an actual person, so they probably don't want to license actual people's faces.
Sure.
So they just give you kind of a cartoon avatar thing.
Of yourself or of?
No. Well,
No.
maybe you could. No, just of somebody like
Yeah. Okay.
AI
person.
those AI faces there. All right. So those were the partnerships that we came across in the past 4 to 5 weeks. Tons of stuff happening. And also partnerships, but partnerships where one acquires the other. You're tracking assiduously. And so let's go through April in terms of M&A.
Partnerships that cannot be undone very easily. Partnerships that are, as you said, one party acquiring the other. We looked through some of the mergers and acquisitions that happened in April that we covered or tracked on Slater. So we have got, I think, four M&A stories coming at you from April. We had Motion Point, which acquired GetGloby, both based in the US. GetGloby being an AI-powered multilingual, I called it a MarTech solution, but marketing technology essentially. And then Motion Point, obviously the website localization technology provider. Those two coming together. GetGloby was founded by ex-Google execs. It does AI content creation in sort of 100 plus languages. And I think we had a press release on our website about this where Motion Point was kind of saying, this is us going deeper into multilingual marketing. Obviously, they acquired Key Content, which is the UK-based content creation agency, earlier in 2025. So that's them sort of progressing a bit deeper along those sort of digital multilingual content creation. Then another story we had was on a press release was Oxo and Powerling announcing their merger. So this is the Canadian Montreal-based language service provider Oxo and the France-based Powerling coming together in a merger, joining together. I mean, this sort of cross-Atlantic partnership now, creating a leader in language solutions. Powerling, I think we probably covered it several times on the M&A front. On Slater, they're private equity backed. They've been reasonably active in M&A. We covered stories of them. Well, I think when they picked up, was it WCS? Belgium, Dutch. It was the Dutch sort of group of translation agencies that they acquired, I think, last year or the year before. So then Oxo, people might be familiar with the brand. It's got a customer footprint in Canada, the US, also Latin America. Sizable company. They are projecting 2025 revenues of around $35 million US. They say that's likely to be split sort of 50-50 between Europe and the Americas. So yeah, not a small sort of acquisition merger that happened here. Then we had yet more announcements from TransPerfect, who I think made the point last time. They've been snapping up numbers of different studios, gaming, all sorts so far in 2025. They've been highly active.
It's just a lot of media. These guys are going fully to like compete with Ayuno and just become like a force in media.
Yeah, exactly. And this announcement that came in April, I think it was the acquisition of 2 French studios. And again, they were buying from the Technicolor Group. So the reason I mentioned gaming is because TransPerfect recently acquired the Technicolor Games division. I think that was an announcement from last month. Now they've announced that they've acquired from the same seller 2 French studios. So these are Paris-based, one post-production studio called MPC, and so focusing on media and entertainment, and another called The Mill, which is a creative content studio more focused on advertising and brand. So yeah, that's what TransPerfect has been up to. In April, Magna Legal Services. This is a company that we track because they do provide legal interpreting services, but really they sort of do a lot more. They focus on court reporting, litigation consulting, and all sorts of legal services. They acquired a company in April, or at least announced in April, called Bays Santiago Reporting, BSR, based out of Delaware. It's, again, a company that is fairly acquisitive. I think we've tracked sort of 2 or 3 acquisitions from Magna Legal Services. They've acquired a company called Zenaris in 2023 and ERSA Court Reporters in 2024. So firmly on the legal space, but they do say their headcount includes more than 800 employees and involves 4,000 court reporters as well as 2,000 interpreters. So quite a sizable sort of interpreting operation there also.
You should probably get them on the podcast and learn a bit about what it is they're doing, because I think we just picked up with another one of their acquisitions yesterday or a day
there
before.
Was one, yeah. I don't think it had any interpreting component, but
okay. So
but yeah, still, I mean, they're obviously active. They are private equity backed since 2022, so yeah, doing something quite interesting, I think, in the legal services space. Maybe they'll be interested to read our legal report.
They should read our legal report. Yeah. Hey, so we picked up on that story by this European startup news portal. I don't know. Portal.
Okay.
What do you call this? Sifted.eu. Kind of the TechCrunch-ish for Europe. So they posted an article that DeepL is planning to go public maybe in early 2026, but maybe already this year. IPOing, they didn't say what exchange they're looking to IPO.
Yeah, that would be my first question.
Well, I don't know, the German, I mean, who has ever listed in the past 10 years like a kind of a tech company in Germany? I don't know. London might be an option, but obviously the deepest capital market here would be NASDAQ, but you have to be probably somewhat sizable to list on NASDAQ. Maybe not. I mean, it would work on NASDAQ. Would be they might have to move some of their resources to New York. Who knows?
They have friends in high places after the whole Apple iOS translation app. Right. So
Yeah. So, I mean, that would be a major story if DeepL were to IPO, not just for the language space, not even for the language AI space, but like for kind of the broader, like uncorking or tapping of the capital markets again. Because, I mean, what was the last big tech IPO? Like it's been a while, right? I mean, companies like Stripe have been private forever. And are not planning to list. So, I mean, this would be a big story for all segments if they were actually to go public. And yeah, very interesting, of course, for us, because we could dig into their filing, and you would learn all kinds of metrics.
I think this is enough to put them off, Florian. We shouldn't.
Well, remember the good old days of like Lionbridge being a NASDAQ listed company. It was like, on a quarterly basis, you could read like all kinds of incredibly interesting stuff.
I know.
About
it. Obviously keywords went delisted, let's say, was it last year or a few months ago? So we do need one to replace them. Otherwise we're running short of companies that are listed in this space.
100%. And I mean, the level of detail, if they were to list on NASDAQ, the level of detail you need to disclose on NASDAQ is even maybe a couple of degrees higher than in London.
That's why they should come to London. Yeah.
No. Go to New York, go to NASDAQ, give us those filings, hundreds of pages. We'll let the AI, go through and give us the highlights. All right. So DeepL is trying to get funds from the public markets, but the VCs, the private investors, are still sending funds over to startups in language AI. So I think there were a couple of things you picked up on.
Yeah, and they're sending a lot of funds. We've got seed rounds now that are sort of in the tune of $8-9 million, which is a lot for a seed round.
Everything's a seed round these days. Like, the previous seed round is now called pre-seed. It's like, what do you mean pre-seed? Like, it's the seed. Like, you take the seed, you plant it, you watch the tree grow. Hey, what's the pre-seat? You go to the shop and buy the seat? I mean, anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here. Okay, Linguana, 8.5 million.
8.5 million for Linguana. This is an AI dubbing startup that does multilingual AI dubbing and raised the seed funding. So we've got investors in them, including a VC firm, 2LVC, and some angel investors. They're also, I mean, we've talked a little bit about YouTube and sort of videos throughout this podcast today, but Linguana helps YouTube content creators to scale globally. So yes, dubbing is a part of that, as you might imagine, but they also go a step further in terms of helping to, selecting which videos to dub. They translate the videos, dub them, and then create descriptions and thumbnails for the video. So it's sort of a bit, dubbing plus, let's say, everything that a video might need to scale across different languages and markets.
I think they have this pricing model that's based on revenue sharing. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, I don't know obviously exactly how it works, but they did say the pricing model is based on revenue sharing with creators.
Well, think about it. If you have like a viral success and you localized it, you're going to get more money. So you're hardcore incentivized to make sure that everything's properly localized and that does well, and thumbnails are they're
and I suppose then it does make sense that they're helping to select the videos, because you'd be like, well, I don't want to localize everything. Maybe I kind of think that not all of this is going to do well in other cultures. So if they're kind of being targeted about the videos that they do want to or are recommending to be localized, then it's potentially worth it.
It's an incredibly interesting business model. If you could even remotely replicate it for other areas in localization, translation, like you're getting a share of the additional revenue somebody is generating with your localization.
People have tried, haven't they? Like with sort of marketing or like not e-learning, sorry. I mean like e-commerce. Things like that.
Okay,
Tricky.
well, here might work. So, okay, the next one is, I can't even read that name.
PiaNote AI.
PiaNote.
I believe is how we're pronouncing it. This is a multilingual AI voice and dubbing startup. They raised just over 8 million euros or close to $9 million. Again, seed funding. This one, I think one of their sort of central ideas is this thing called speaker diarization, which I have to say is not a term I'd come across before. But they explain it as using AI to identify who said what in a conversation, and then to reveal meaning in the voice interactions, and regardless of the language that is being used. And all of that within a multilingual context, of course.
I need to really reveal meaning in so they're going to the underlying foundational truth of what somebody says.
Sentiment. No, I don't know.
And then they're okay.
Intention.
That's deep.
Yeah.
That's deep.
It's deep. I think, reading the article, or at least our coverage, was sort of that we were thinking about how most AI, or at least in their terms, this is sort of the premise. A lot of the AI solutions are kind of geared up for monolingual, one speaker type settings, and that actually a lot of interactions, or a lot of just speech generally that's recorded is more than one party. So more than one person speaking, sometimes more than one language, and to try and assist with those kind of settings. So it's used, they say, in use cases such as healthcare consultations, courtroom transcriptions, meetings, and customer service. So
got it. Not YouTube.
Mostly B2B, not YouTube. Well, maybe.
No revenue sharing.
No revenue sharing, no, not for them.
That's it for today. Thanks for listening and watching, and do head over to Sladicon London and get your ticket. Looking forward to seeing you in London on May 23rd, 22nd. Goodbye.